Vera Rowen was already 10 minutes late, flustered and juggling 2 coffee cups when she slid into the booth by the window of the downtown cafe, completely unaware she had just sat down at the wrong table. "Sorry I'm late. The subway stalled and I spilled almond milk on my shirt, so just—" "Don't look too close," she muttered, placing one of the cups in front of the man seated across from her without even glancing up. There was a pause. Then a low, amused voice. "I wasn't expecting you at all, actually." Vera froze. Her eyes finally lifted to meet the gaze of a man who was very much not her best friend Amanda. He wasn't even sipping a matcha latte like Amanda always did. No, he had a black coffee and a charcoal gray wool coat folded beside him on the bench, and his wristwatch probably cost more than her rent. "Oh my God," she whispered, already grabbing the cup back. This isn't your almond kvass, is it?" A small laugh rumbled from his chest. "No, but I'm not complaining." She scrambled to stand, her cheeks burned pink. "I'm so sorry. My friend said window booth and I didn't even think to check." "It's fine," he said, smiling now. It was an easy, relaxed kind of smile, but his eyes, those dark, sharp eyes, watched her with more interest than politeness. "You can sit. Unless you'd rather go spill on someone else." Vera looked around. Every table was full. Amanda was nowhere in sight. She felt like crawling under the table. "I'll just stand awkwardly and drink this until she shows up," she said, hovering. "Or," he said, sliding his coffee aside and nodding toward the empty seat across from him, "you could sit, just for a few minutes." She hesitated. He didn't look like a creep. He looked like he belonged in a boardroom or on the cover of a luxury lifestyle magazine. His hair was dark and a little tousled, like he hadn't bothered to style it, and his jaw was sculpted enough to make her forget how legs worked for a second. "Okay, but if Amanda shows up and sees me flirting with a stranger, she'll never let me live it down," Vera warned, sitting back down carefully. "So you admit it's flirting," he said, teasing. She narrowed her eyes. "You're very smooth for someone who just got ambushed by a clumsy woman with coffee." "You're not clumsy," he said. "You're interesting." Vera blinked. "That's a line." "No," he said, settling back. "It's an observation." They sat there for a moment, her stirring her drink unnecessarily, him watching her like he was trying to figure something out. She finally broke the silence. "So, mystery man," she said. "Who are you meeting?" "No one," he said. "I come here to breathe." That caught her off guard. "To breathe," he nodded. "My meetings are chaos. Phones ringing, people shouting numbers, making fake smiles. Here, no one expects anything from me. I like that." She tilted her head. "Let me guess." "Finance?" He gave her a look that was impossible to read. "Sort of." "Oh, come on, you reek of boardrooms and overpriced shoes," she teased. He laughed. "You don't hold back, do you?" She shrugged. "Why bother? I already embarrassed myself in the first 30 seconds. Might as well go all in." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Okay then, what do you do, Vera?" Her eyebrows shot up. "I didn't tell you my name." He tapped his finger on her coffee cup. Sure enough, the barista had scribbled Vera on the side. She huffed a laugh. "Right. Well, I'm a graphic designer, freelance, which is a fancy way of saying I eat a lot of ramen when clients pay late." "I like that," he said. "You like ramen?" "I like that you're honest." She was about to reply when her phone buzzed. "Amanda." Vera opened the screen and groaned. "She's at the other cafe. There's 2 locations with the same name 2 blocks apart. She's going to murder me." When she looked up, the man across from her was already pulling out his wallet. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm buying you another 10 minutes," he said, placing a crisp $50 bill on the table. "So you don't have to run off just yet." Vera stared at the money. "That's unnecessary, I know," he said, "but I want to." She should have said no. She should have stood up and left. Instead, she stayed. "So, mystery man," she said again. "What's your name?" He hesitated, then, "Oliver Easton." It meant nothing to her. She nodded. "Well, Oliver, thanks for letting me hijack your breathing space." He smiled again. "You made it better." They talked for another 10 minutes. Then 20. By the time Amanda called again, Vera had forgotten entirely about the time. She stood reluctantly. I should go before Amanda sends a search party. Oliver stood with her. Can I walk you out? They stepped onto the street together. The afternoon was soft with light and the buzz of traffic. She turned to him. This was weird but nice. Let's do it again, he said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. You don't even know me. I'd like to, he said simply. She hesitated. Then, okay, he reached into his coat and pulled out a sleek black card. Come to this address tomorrow, 7 sharp, I'll make dinner worth your time. She took the card, blinking at the gold lettering. It only had his name and an address in Tribeca. Wait, she said. You live here, he raised an eyebrow. I own the building, her jaw nearly dropped. You own a building in Tribeca, he gave a small smile. I told you, finance, sort of. Okay, now you're just showing off. Only because it worked, he said, watching her eyes dance. Vera shook her head, laughing. You're something else, Oliver Easton. And as she turned to leave, she didn't notice him standing there for a moment longer, watching her like he'd just met someone who might change everything. Because Oliver Easton, CEO of Easton Holdings, one of the most powerful real estate corporations in New York, had just had his world flipped upside down, and he was already falling. Vera stood outside the building on White Street, staring up at the sleek limestone facade rising between older, more worn structures. The address Oliver had given her was etched discreetly in brass above the entrance, nothing flashy, but undeniably expensive. She shifted her weight, heels clicking nervously on the sidewalk as she tried not to overthink every single choice she'd made that day. She hadn't known what kind of dinner this was supposed to be, so she'd gone with a silky navy top and black slacks, simple, clean, and not trying too hard. At least that's what she told herself. The doorman, dressed in a tailored black uniform with a subtle silver pin at his lapel, opened the door before she could touch it. Miss Rowen, he said, his voice calm and professional, her mouth parted in surprise. Yes, he's expecting you. Penthouse? Of course, not floor 15. Not a sleek corner apartment. Penthouse. The elevator opened directly into the suite, where warm amber lighting spilled across polished walnut floors. A soft melody floated from somewhere unseen, not jazz, not classical something modern, but orchestral, like it had been composed just to fill the space without demanding attention. She stepped in, clutching her purse a little tighter. Vera, she turned. Oliver stood in the open archway leading from the kitchen, sleeves rolled to his elbows, an apron tied loosely around his waist. He looked nothing like the man she'd met the day before. This version was barefoot, calmly stirring something in a copper saucepan, and somehow still managed to look completely in control. You cook? She asked, stunned. I experiment, he replied, lifting the pan with one hand and gesturing to the marble island with the other. Sit. I made risotto. Don't get too excited, it's either genius or inedible. She slid onto the stool, trying not to gawk at the glass wall behind him that overlooked the city, lights stretching in every direction like constellations. I figured you'd have a chef, she said. I do, he said. But I asked him to take the night off. He plated the dish with practiced care and placed it in front of her. I wanted to cook for you, she stared at him. You don't know me. I know I wanted more than 10 minutes, he said, watching her reaction. The risotto was incredible. Creamy, perfectly salted, with a citrus finish she couldn't stop chasing. She didn't say anything at first, just let the silence stretch between them, filled only by the clink of silverware and the hum of the city beyond the glass. Eventually, she set her fork down. What's your angle? He raised a brow. Angle? You're clearly successful, she said. And you're not exactly lacking in options, so why me? He leaned forward, resting his forearms on the counter. Because you walked into my day like it was yours, because you didn't shrink or pretend. You were real, she tilted her head, skeptical. That's it? No, he said, but it's where it started. She looked down at her plate, heart ticking faster. You're not used to people treating you normally, are you? Not anymore, she nodded slowly. Must be exhausting. It is. He took her plate when she finished and rinsed it in the sink like it was the most normal thing in the world. Then he poured them both a drink, hers a crisp white, his a deep amber, and they took it to the couch near the floor-to-ceiling windows. She curled one leg beneath her, careful not to drip condensation on the buttery leather. "I Googled you," she said after a beat. "I couldn't help it. And you're bigger than I expected." He gave a quiet laugh. "I get that a lot." She rolled her eyes. "You know what I mean. Does it bother you?" he asked. "That you're a billionaire," she said. "Only if you start referring to yachts in casual conversation." "I don't own a yacht." "Well, that's something." They sat in silence again, but this time it was different, less tentative, more weighted. The city lights reflected in the windows, their outlines ghosted against the glass. "My mother worked 4 jobs to keep us afloat," she said, her voice quieter now. "She ironed uniforms at night. I used to wait up just to hug her before she fell asleep on the couch." He studied her, his expression unreadable. "I never had much," she continued. "So this," she gestured vaguely around the penthouse, "it's beautiful. But it also feels like something I'm not supposed to touch." He set his drink down and turned toward her. "You think I invited you here to make you feel small? I think people like you don't always realize how wide the gap is." "I do," he said. "But I also know what it's like to want something that feels just out of reach." She met his gaze. "What did you want? For someone to look at me and not see what I own?" She didn't answer, just let the moment hang between them. Then she stood. "I should go," she said, pulling her coat from the back of the chair. He followed her to the elevator, hands in his pockets. "Let me call a car." "I'll walk," she said. "It's not far." He hesitated, then nodded once. She stepped into the elevator, but before the doors closed, she looked up at him. "This doesn't feel like a game to you, does it?" "No," he said. "Not even a little." The elevator shut between them, and she leaned back against the wall, heart pounding. Outside, the air was cool and electric with the buzz of Friday night. Vera walked past bars spilling laughter onto the street, past storefronts with their metal gates half drawn, until she found herself on a quiet side street. She stopped beneath a street lamp and looked up at the sky. No stars. Just the pale orange haze of the city. She didn't know what this was yet, but it was already changing her. 3 days passed before Vera saw him again. She'd buried herself in client revisions and backlogged invoices, trying not to replay every second of that night in Oliver's penthouse. Not just the view or the food, but the way he'd looked at her like she wasn't part of the noise he lived in every day. Like she was something he didn't want to lose. She hadn't heard from him. Not a call, not a note. And though she hadn't expected, anything had told herself. It was just some strange, beautiful evening with a man she barely knew. Her stomach still twisted when she thought about how easily he might have moved on. Then on Thursday, her phone rang while she was in the middle of sketching a mock-up for a boutique bakery's rebrand. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something made her swipe the screen and lift the phone. "Vera Rowen," a smooth, clipped voice said, speaking. "This is Mr. Easton would like to invite you to a gallery opening this evening. Transportation will be provided." Vera blinked. "I'm sorry, who?" He assumed you might not be free for dinner again, so he hoped a shorter engagement might suit your schedule. "The car will be outside your building at 6. The line disconnected before she could protest. At 6 sharp, a black town car pulled up in front of her building. The driver stepped out and greeted her by name, opening the door like she was someone who belonged in that world. Vera hesitated for only a second before sliding in. The gallery was in Chelsea, one of those converted warehouses with exposed beams and concrete floors, the kind of place where people whispered about brushstroke technique, while sipping wine worth more than her wardrobe. Oliver was waiting just inside the entrance, wearing a navy suit with no tie, shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His hair looked like he'd run a hand through it too many times, and there was something sharper in his eyes tonight, less polished, more wired. "You came," he said, stepping toward her. "I wasn't given much choice," she said, glancing around. "Your assistant is terrifying." "She's efficient," he said, offering his arm. She didn't take it, but she walked beside him. The gallery buzzed with soft conversations and the clink of glassware. Paintings lined the walls, large, chaotic pieces that seemed more emotional than technical. Vera tilted her head at one, all jagged lines and deep reds. "You like it?" he asked. "I don't know yet," she said. "It feels like someone's trying to scream without saying anything." He looked at her, not the painting. "That's why I brought you," she turned. "What do you mean?" "I rarely see things clearly anymore," he said. "Too many filters. People telling me what I should like, what I should invest in, who I should be seen with. But you see things for what they are." She tried to laugh it off. "I just said it looked like a scream, and you're the only one here who said anything real." A server passed with a tray of drinks. Vera took one without thinking. She needed something to anchor herself. Oliver, however, didn't touch a thing. She noticed, "You don't drink at these things, not anymore." "Why?" He hesitated. "My father used to." She didn't push, but her gaze lingered. He led her to a quieter corner near a piece that was just a single streak of charcoal across a white canvas. "I bought this last year," he said. She blinked. "You paid money for that?" "Too much," he admitted. "I didn't even like it. But my advisor said the artist was about to explode." "Did they?" "No idea. I never checked." Vera studied the piece. "It feels lonely." Oliver's jaw tightened. "Yeah." They stood there for a long moment, silence stretching between them again, but not awkward this time. It was weighty. Intentional, she finally turned to him. "Why did you really invite me tonight?" He didn't look away. "Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you," her breath caught, "and because," he added, voice lower now, "I need someone in my life who doesn't care what I'm worth." She swallowed. "You don't even know what I care about." "I'm trying to." She looked at the streak of charcoal again. "What happens if I say I don't fit in this world? Then I'll come find you in yours." That stopped her cold. He meant it. She could hear it in the way he said it, unpolished and a little raw, like he wasn't used to making promises but was doing it anyway. She glanced up at him. "You really don't have anything better to do than chase a graphic designer with a caffeine addiction and a tendency to walk into strangers at cafes." He stepped closer, the air between them pulling tight. "No," he said. "I really don't." She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The way her eyes held his was enough. Later, when the gallery began to thin out, Oliver led her to a private rooftop above the building. There, lanterns flickered between potted olive trees and the skyline unfolded in every direction. "I come up here when I need to remember I'm human," he said. She laughed softly. "You say that like you forget." "Sometimes I do." He turned, and for the first time she saw something behind the calm exterior, a flicker of something unguarded. "I've spent so long building the kind of life everyone else wanted me to have," he said. "I didn't realize how empty it was until you sat down at my table." Vera's heart beat hard against her ribs. "I didn't mean to," she said. "I know," he replied. "That's what makes it real." She stepped closer, just enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "I don't know what this is," she admitted. "Neither do I," he said, "but I'd like to find out." The silence this time was different. It hummed with possibility, and just before she turned to leave, Oliver reached out not to pull her in but to press something small into her hand. It was a key. "To the rooftop," he said. "Come up here anytime, even if I'm not around." She tightened her fingers around the cold metal. "Why would you give me this?" "Because you felt like the first honest thing I've had in years." She didn't kiss him. She didn't need to. She just walked away, heart pounding, key clenched in her hand, knowing something had shifted between them, and knowing it wouldn't be long before everything changed. Vera stepped cautiously into the conference room, clutching her portfolio against her ribs like a shield. It wasn't the kind of place she normally pitched in floor-to-ceiling windows. A long walnut table that gleamed beneath the warm track lighting, and a skyline view that made her knees waver. She'd been contacted by a boutique real estate firm about refreshing their brand identity, and only when she arrived did she realize the firm was a wholly owned subsidiary of Easton Holdings. She hadn't seen Oliver in over a week, not since the rooftop, not since the key. "Miss Rowen," a sharply dressed woman with minimalist jewelry and an efficient gait gestured to the head of the table. "Have a seat." Mr. Easton will be joining shortly. Of course he would. Vera sat, forcing herself to breathe evenly. She'd prepared for this. She knew every talking point, had built out 3 branding directions, and even mocked up a motion graphic demo. But none of that mattered if her hands shook every time she thought about the way Oliver had looked at her. The door opened. He entered in a slate suit, no tie again, but this time there was a different energy about him. Colder, more restrained. His jaw was tight, his gaze focused on the folder in his hand. "Let's begin," he said without looking up. The woman beside him tapped her tablet. "Miss Rowen is prepared with initial concepts." Only then did Oliver glance at her, his eyes paused just for a breath. No flicker of warmth, no trace of the man who'd handed her a key under stars. "Go ahead," he said. She stood, teeth clenched behind a polite smile. Her voice didn't waver as she walked them through the first concept, a sleek, contemporary logo that drew from architectural symmetry. The second was more tactile, built around texture and space. The third leaned into legacy, how to convey credibility without leaning on coldness. When she finished, the woman nodded. "Impressive work, very clean." Oliver said nothing. She turned to him. "Feedback," his tone was smooth but impersonal. "They're technically strong. The third has potential, but I'd like to see something more, instinctual. Less rehearsed." Vera's spine straightened. "These are instinctual. You asked for clarity and emotion. That's what I built." He closed the folder. "Then I must have asked the wrong person." The room froze. Vera didn't flinch. She only turned to the woman. "Thank you for your time." She gathered her materials and walked out, her heels echoing across the polished floor. She didn't stop until she reached the elevator. "Vera," she turned sharply. He'd followed her out but hadn't closed the distance. "You can't do that," she snapped. "You don't get to invite me into your world and then flip a switch like none of it mattered." "I had to make it look professional." "Is that what that was? Professional?" Her voice dropped. "You looked through me. Like I was one of your vendors." "I didn't mean it that way." "Then what did you mean, Oliver? Because I don't play games and I definitely don't let men write me off in front of their staff." He stepped forward. "You think I'm writing you off?" "No, I think you're scared." He didn't answer. She hit the elevator button. "You don't want to lose control, I get it, but I'm not going to stand here and wait for you to decide if I'm worth the risk." The doors opened and she stepped in. He didn't follow. The next day she found the key in her mailbox. No note. Just the key wrapped in plain paper. That night she didn't go to the rooftop. She went to bed restless, unsure if she should feel heartbroken or furious. The weekend passed without a word. On Monday morning, she arrived at her shared coworking space to find a package waiting at her desk. No return label, just her name in sharp black lettering. Inside, she found a rolled canvas, a painting, not a print, original, the same one from the gallery. The one she said felt like someone screaming in silence. Taped to the back was a small card. "You were right." It was lonely. She stared at it for a long time. That evening, as the sky turned violet above the rooftops, she climbed the narrow stairs to the building in Chelsea. The door to the rooftop was unlocked. She found him there. No suit, no polished lines. Just jeans, a gray shirt, and a look in his eyes that didn't belong to a CEO. "I was a coward," he said. She said nothing. "I haven't let anyone close in years. I thought I could keep this separate, that I could be two people. But you saw right through both." She folded her arms. "Why send the painting?" "Because I didn't have the words." She stepped closer. "Try." He looked down, then back up. "When I met you, I thought it was a fluke, a distraction. But you kept showing up in my head, in boardrooms, in elevators, in places I've never let anyone reach. You made me remember I'm not just a title, not a balance sheet." She blinked against the sting behind her eyes. "I pushed you away because I didn't think I deserved you," he said, "but I was wrong." He pulled something from his pocket, a small, narrow box. She took a step back. "That better not be a ring." "It's not," he said, opening it. Inside was a silver pendant shaped like an abstract skyline, clean, minimal, and beautiful. "I had it made," he said. "It's not about the city, it's about the view I had the night I met you." Her voice cracked. You don't even know what I want, Oliver. He stepped closer. Then tell me. She searched his face. There was no performance, no armor. I want someone who listens, she said. Someone who sees me not just when it's convenient, but when it's messy, when I'm scared. When I won't say the right thing. He reached out, fingers brushing hers. I'm listening now. She didn't move. I don't care about your penthouse, she whispered, or your money. I care about standing here and knowing you're not hiding. I'm not. She looked down at his hand, then up at him. Then I'm staying. His arms wrapped around her before she could say another word. There was no hesitation, no fear, just warmth, real, solid. Earned later as they stood at the edge of the rooftop, the city spread out beneath them. He pressed his forehead to hers. Do you believe in fate? He asked. No, she said. But I believe in accidents, he laughed, and when he kissed her it wasn't rushed or uncertain. It was the kind of kiss that came after the fall, after the fear. After you knew without question that you were exactly where you were meant to be. The rain had just stopped when Vera stepped into the atrium of Easton Holdings, her heels leaving faint, damp prints on the marble. She hadn't planned on being here again, not like this, but Oliver had asked her to come, and for once, he hadn't hidden behind assistance or silence. He'd simply shown up at her apartment the night before, no driver, no umbrella, soaked to the bone, asking for something terrifying and rare. Time. Not a moment, not a dinner. Time. Now, the man who had once seemed untouchable stood at the far end of the vast lobby, speaking quietly with a woman in a crisp blazer. When he saw Vera, he paused mid-sentence, offered a quiet word to the woman, and walked straight toward her. You're early, he said, brushing a raindrop from her collarbone. You said you wanted to show me something, she said. I figured you wouldn't ask unless it mattered. He motioned for her to follow him past the elevators into a wing of the building she'd never seen. It was quiet here, no staff, just a single hallway lined with large photographs. Each one showed buildings in various stages of decay, collapsing warehouses, weed-choked lots, forgotten streets. These were all ours, Oliver said. Acquired, stripped, sold. It was lucrative. But it never sat right with me. She studied the images, struck by how personal they felt. Why are you showing me this? He opened a glass door at the end of the hallway, revealing a long, rectangular room. Inside were models. Not of towers or penthouses, but of community centers, public libraries, parks, rendered in exquisite detail. I'm done building for people who already have everything, he said. I've started something new, quietly. For now. She stepped closer to one model, a community art space with wide open windows and rooftop gardens. This is beautiful, she whispered. I want you to design the visual identity, he said. No strings, no pressure, just your voice, your vision. She turned, heart stammering. Are you sure? It's not charity, Vera, it's trust. You told me once you see things for what they are, I need that now more than ever. She looked down at the model again, then back up. I'll do it. But only if you stop pretending like you still have something to prove to me, he exhaled slowly. Deal? Later that night they walked through the West Village, hands brushing, the city still glistening from the rain. They passed a little storefront with a black awning and hand-painted signage. Inside, a jazz trio played to a half-empty room. Let's go in, Vera said. Oliver hesitated. I don't have a reservation. You're with me, she said. I know the owner. They slipped inside. Vera waved to a man behind the bar who gave her a wink and pointed toward a table near the stage. Used to do design work for their menus, she said as they sat. They paid me in wine and leftover pastries. Oliver laughed, the sound low and unguarded. You never told me that. You never asked. The music swelled, brushing over them like silk. When their drinks arrived, she raised her glass. To fewer walls, she said. He tapped his against hers. And more windows. As the music shifted into something softer, he reached across the table. I've been thinking, he said. About permanence. She raised an eyebrow. That's a dangerous word. Only if it's forced, but this, you and me. It doesn't feel like something I want to escape. Her fingers tightened around his. I don't want you to escape. I want you to stay. I'm staying, he said, and not just in your world. I want to build one with you. They didn't speak again for a while. They didn't have to. 2 months later, Vera stood in front of a wide brick building in Brooklyn. It had once been a textile factory, then a storage facility. And now, under her direction and Oliver's funding, it was being transformed into a creative co-op space for young artists. Inside, workers were measuring walls, installing track lighting, painting the ceilings a soft cloud gray. She carried a folder under her arm, final branding proofs, all approved and ready to go. Oliver was already there, sleeves rolled, talking with a contractor. When he saw her, he walked over and took the folder from her hands without a word. Then he kissed her right there in front of everyone. "I told you," he said against her mouth. "You changed everything." She smiled against his lips. "I just reminded you who you already were." They spent the rest of the day walking the halls, making decisions together, never once stepping on each other's vision. By sundown, the space was beginning to feel alive. That night, they returned to the penthouse, not as strangers. Not as people circling something fragile, but as two people who had chosen each other again and again. In the quiet glow of the living room, he pulled a small envelope from his jacket. "What's that?" she asked. "A different kind of proposal," he said. She opened it. Inside was a deed. "To the rooftop building," he said. "I bought it for us. Studio space for you on the top floor, offices below, a garden eventually, whatever you want to grow there." She stared at him, speechless. "I don't need a ring to know this is forever," he said. "But if you do say the word, and I'll bring you a diamond the size of your stubborn streak." She laughed, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. "I don't want a diamond, I want this. Then it's yours." They fell asleep with the windows open, the city humming below like a lullaby. Years later, the rooftop garden bloomed with lavender and thyme. Inside the studio, Vera painted with the windows wide, the late sun catching the curve of her smile. And somewhere below, Oliver laughed with a group of interns in worn jeans and rolled sleeves, no suit in sight. They never talked about accidents anymore, because they knew without question that they had chosen each other. And when love is chosen freely, fully, and without fear, it never feels like a mistake. It feels like home.